You can chant quickly.
Hare Krishna. Ekavira Prabhu chanter.
He's a wonderful chanter, Ekavira Prabhu. You should listen to him chant live, Prabhus.
Jaya Ragamada Jaya Kunjabiha Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunjabiha Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Giridharadhari Jaya Giridharadhari Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Giridharadhari Jaya Giridharadhari Yashodananda Jaya Yashodananda Yamuna Tiravamachari Jaya Kunjabihari Jaya Kunjabihari Yamuna Tiravamachari Jaya Kunjabihari Jaya Kunjabihari Jaya Kunjabihari Jaya Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Shila Prabhupada Jayam Vishnupad Paramhams Purvakacharya Stotara Satashishi Madhus Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Natakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Brahmacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shikor Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaura Hari Hari Bol Hare Krishna. Thank you very much again to their devotees and Hari Purush Prabhu. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much again. Nanda Bihari Prabhu. It's good to see all the devotees. Hari Purusha. Again, it's such a wonderful experience to hear you chanting in the mornings. Yes. Sweet, 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 washing our brain. Oh, sweetness. Thank you so much. So, reading today Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day, and we will share a memory from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Today, we'll share it right after. So, we're very happy to be able to, all of us to be together on this most auspicious day of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. We're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 43. We're starting with text number 31. This is the chapter entitled Krishna Kills the Elephant. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 31. Janeshvadeva Bhuvaneshu Turyeshu Nindatsu Cha Krishna Ramo Samadhasya Chanuro Vakyam Abravit Janeshu as the people. Evam thus Bruvasdeshu was speaking. Turyeshu as the musical instruments. Nendatsu were resounding. Cha and Krishna Ram. Krishna Ram. Ooh. Okay, Krishna and Balaram. Samabhashya addressing Chanura, the demon wrestler Chanura. Vakyam, words, Abravit said. And the translation by Srila Prabhupada, while the people talked in this way and the musical instruments resounded, the wrestler Chanura addressed Krishna and Balaram with the following words. Chanura could not tolerate that the audience was praising Krishna so highly. Therefore, he had to say something to the two brothers. So we'll just do the prayers and then we'll speak a little bit on each verse. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthutale Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Srivadi Pasatya Doshataya Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitamani Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Janamani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Vanchakalpatulubhyascha, Vipasindubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Hare Hare Bol, they're devotees. So this is an exciting pastime. Love this pastime, and especially this first part of the pastime because we're going to hear a really nice dialogue, a beautiful, wonderful dialogue between this demon and Krishna. And of course, this demon, these both demons, Chanura and Mushtika, they're part of Kamsa's entourage. So we can understand their history and some of the ways that they think. Something that caught my attention in this verse was these words, Shakyam, the words, Abravit, that was said, the words that were said. And those words, of course, coming from a demon, are words that definitely were quite duplicitous, meaning that they were saying one thing, he was saying one thing, Chandra, but he had a different intention. So what his words was saying sounded a little bit pleasing. Bhagavad Gita explains to us about the kind of words that is recommended to speak. And of course, those words are words that are pleasing to hear, those words that are encouraging. This 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita explains to us about the different kinds of words that we use in terms of when we're trying to make a connection with someone, a deep connection. Chanura was really superficial in this little pastime right here, these little verses. Because now we're going to hear how he dialogues with Krishna. And it sounds like he's speaking pleasing words. Actually, though, he's not. So we'll hear a little bit about that. Yeah, austerity of speech. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And so because we see that Charuna was, he had these qualities of these demoniac qualities, which we know in Bhagavad Gita. That's another verse in Bhagavad Gita in the 16th chapter, with all the demoniac qualities are there for us to understand. Srila Prabhupada is so kind. He helps us in the Bhagavad Gita for us to go internally also to see if we can relate to any of these different qualities. And then we have these external personalities to show us how these qualities manifest, like Janura. So because he had so much pride and because he was arrogant, he had these thoughts that they were so great because they were huge. Krishna and Balaram, of course, were young boys. So he spoke in a way that he was tinged with envy, for sure. He was envious of Krishna. At the same time, though, he was speaking these words that sounded like he was encouraging or glorifying or praising Krishna. But as we said, his intentions was totally, totally different. So words are like windows, or they're like windows. They can open, or they can open us up to something, or they can also close, right? They can keep us very closed. So Chanura was speaking, but Krishna knew, because Krishna, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he understood Charuna's intention. And so Ekavira Prabhu is going to share some of what Charuna said to Krishna.
And we're going to move through these verses rather quickly so we can speak a little bit about Srila Prabhupada, and then also ask you some of your favorite pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, or at least one of your favorite pastimes. The next verse, Janura said, "O son of Nanda, O Rama, you two are well respected by courageous men and are both skillful at wrestling. Having heard your prowess, the king has called you here, wanting to see for himself." And so Chanura is actually speaking. One wonderful thing about this particular verse, right, is that Chanura, he begins this characteristics of the demoniac. Yes, even though he was demoniac and representing the demoniac king, he called upon Krishna and Balaram. Hey, Nandasunu. Hey, Rama. And this was a wonderful way to start the dialogue, although, as you said, the intentions were way off. And of course, he's engaging in this battle with Krishna and of course Mustika is engaged with Rama, Balaram. And we see that this particular type of activity is something that's quite common among different traditions. We found it also in Christianity. Jacob actually wrestled with God. Mm-hmm. But we won't talk so much about this verse. We can go on to the next one.
Well, actually, I wanted to ask everyone, have you ever experienced someone speaking to you and sounding like what they're saying is wonderful? However, you kind of know, like, nah, they're saying this, but it's not really what they mean. They're sometimes not very straightforward. They're sometimes a little bit duplicitous in what they say. And they want you to think that, I really care about you, but we know they really don't. Have any of you ever had that experience? Passive aggressive, yeah.
I work in corporate America. Yes.
Okay. Yes, definitely corporate America. They have their share of, yes, linguistic gymnastics. I love that, Christina. Thank you. Yes, linguistic gymnastics is so popular in the world with the conditioned souls. People are not yet aware that they're actually devotees of the Lord. And so, yes, this was the mood that Charuna had. He was going to speak like he's to Krishna. He's speaking to Krishna like he's saying something that's encouraging and caring, but it's not. And he doesn't realize, like, he's speaking to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that's in everyone's heart, that knows exactly how everyone is thinking. What about insincere prayers, having ulterior motive in prayer? Yes, Jeffrey. Yes, people do that, right? They pray to the Lord and ask for so many material things that are just very superficial. And this is all due to not having proper knowledge, right? Are you okay? Yes, well, this is the process of bhakti, to always be internal and to always think that whatever is outside that we might not appreciate, that perhaps some of those things may be inside of us, some of those tendencies. That's the devotee. So you're the humble devotee. You're definitely exemplifying for us the mood of Lord Chaitanya, right? Be more humble than a blade of grass and check inside of ourselves to see, oh, wow, this is really strange how he's going to speak like this, but at the same time, it's he doesn't mean it. They don't mean it. Because how do we know they don't mean it? Because they're part of Kamsa's entourage. Kamsa want to kill Krishna. So we know they're coming with a mood, with an intent to really kill Krishna. So the next verse, subjects of the king who tried to please him with, is that the verse you just read? Okay. Who try to please him with their thoughts, acts, and words are sure to achieve good fortune. So here they're really like, now they're gonna kind of share something with Krishna to incite within Krishna why he is supposed to do, why he is to act, why he's to engage in this wrestling match. So he's going on, but those who fail to do so will suffer the opposite fate. So it's interesting how he's saying subjects of the king. Okay, so yes, we understand the king is to be worshipped. The king is actually pious kings are as good as God. And so everything in the Sastra explains to us how the king, how he would treat his citizens for in order to get that kind of respect that Charuna is speaking about. So he's saying the citizens, they who try to please him with now he's kind of being fear deceptive, because he's saying with their thoughts, with their acts, and again, here comes this word, with their words. Now they're speaking words that's ill intent. However, his expectation is that Krishna is supposed to have words. He's supposed to speak words. He's supposed to perform activities, and his thoughts are supposed to be totally aligned with the king, totally aligned with Kamsa. And so he's saying to him, if you don't have that, then certainly you're going to have some opposite effects. So in some sense, he's kind of threatening him with his words, right? Saying, if you don't adhere to these qualities of being thoughtful, of your acts and your words, always also as one of the citizens, that the citizens, when they try to please, if their words are not to please Krishna, I'm sorry, to please Kamsa, if their words are not to, if their actions are not to please Kamsa, and if their thoughts are not to please Kamsa, then they're not going to get good fortune. So, and that's definitely good, they're going to suffer. So this is the mood of the demons. The demons, they're never really straightforward, and they never really, they try to manipulate, and we see that in the world today. We see how, people have little, not the kind of demonic tendencies like Kamsa or even Charuna and Mushtika. Their demonic tendencies can't compare, really. However, they have some of those same qualities. They, in conversation, they try to manipulate. And so we need to be very present, to the people that we're talking to and hearing how they're speaking. Of course, this is people that are materialists. We're not speaking about the devotees. We're certainly know the devotees. They are not duplicitous, and the devotees have all the best intentions, and devotees really care about each other. And so these verses are to help us to understand the mentality of those persons that have no awareness about bhakti, about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Ishopanishad tells us in relationship to this verse, in the 10th purport of the Sri Ishopanishad. This is also in the Bhagavad Gita in the 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12. There's a kind of culture that a person that's aspiring to love God, that they we need to cultivate. And there's 6 of them. I'll share those real quickly from the Ishopanishad. One should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. This will keep us from not being duplicitous with our words. One should not pose himself as a religionist simply for name and fame. So we know Kamsa, that was his whole, of course, he's a demon and he wants to be famous. And he's afraid of Krishna most of all, because he's afraid of death. One should not become a source of anxiety to others by the actions of his body, by the thoughts of his mind, or by his words. Basically, that's what Arjuna is saying to Krishna in terms of him respecting Kamsa or worshiping Kamsa, right? One should learn forbearance even in the face of provocation from others. So this is Krishna's mood. He's hearing Charuna and he knows. And so him and Balaram, okay, they agreed to wrestle. Okay, let's wrestle. That's his favorite sport anyway. That's what he does with the cowherd boys. So he's going to have fun. Krishna, he's always going to have fun. He's always joyful. He's like, okay, yeah, we know that your intentions isn't really to care for us or to care for your citizens. However, yeah, we'll engage in this wrestling match. And this is the theme of what we're wanting to share with everyone today. One should learn to avoid duplicity in his dealings with others. Because to be duplicitous really leads to lack of trust in community. And in order to build community, we need to be straightforward. We need to be honest. We need to speak honest, palatable words that can encourage and engage others in wanting to share their deepest, in the core of their hearts, their deepest concerns. That's what community really means. One should search out, of course, a bona fide spiritual master who can lead him gradually or her to the stage of spiritual realization. And one must submit herself to such a spiritual master, render that person service, and ask relevant questions. There's nothing in the scriptures that says we are not to be expressive. We're not to speak. That is something that is just so important. I have experienced over the years that devotees, in many cases, they're afraid of their spiritual masters. They can't just approach them and ask them questions. And that's not the mood, according to the Sri Ishopanishad. We're to develop this mood of being able to ask relevant questions, palatable questions to learn, to grow, and to grow. Okay, Ekavira is going to do the next verse.
So text 34. It is well known that cowherd boys are always joyful as they tend their calves, and that the boys playfully wrestle with each other while grazing their animals in the various forests. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada expresses here, Chandra explains how the 2 brothers came to be expert in wrestling. Okay, and Chandra, of course, he's expressing this, but he's also has this material characteristic that he's resting on is his material prowess. He's proud of that. It's explained that he's huge. Of course, we don't have that. We have a slide that goes.
Yeah, we wanted to show you a slide of a sumo wrestler.
So, Chandora and Mustika were huge. And of course, Balaram, Krishna and Balaram, they're young in stature. And of course, the audience, they're looking at the two and they said, this is unfair. And of course, Krishna at one point expresses, this is unfair also. And Chandora, he's thinking, yeah, it is unfair, but, let's go for it. And so in this particular verse, it expresses that Krishna wrestles with the cowherd boys. Now, what's the difference between wrestling with the cowherd boys and wrestling with Chandora and Mustika? Well, you talked about that. One of the things is very important in our speaking. What goes behind how we actually speak is our intention. How we want this to actually work. So what is the intention behind these two acts of pleasing Krishna? Because Chandora and Mustika were actually pleasing Krishna too, because Krishna wanted to fight. However, the cowherd boys engage in this loving activity of wrestling because they want to please the Lord in a favorable way. And of course, Chandora and Mustika, they were actually pleasing Krishna, but doing it in an unfavorable way. And so it reminded me of a particular pastime with a devotee. I remember I was in Govardhan, and there's one devotee, I don't know if you all know him, is Sarvabhauma Prabhu. He's a disciple of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Really, really sweet devotee. And Sarvabhauma was just telling me in his past life, before coming to devotional service, that he used to wrestle. And so, yes, he was sharing his past. And I don't know if, for those who don't know Sarvabhauma, Sarvabhauma's stature is about, I guess he's about 5'4", maybe 120 pounds, with bricks in his pocket and concrete boots. Very light, very small in stature. And so he tells a pastime when he was at the temple in Houston, and there was this devotee that came to the Houston temple, and he was an ex-military man. He came from the Marines, and he was big, strong, stout. And so he agreed to come and stay into the temple for 3 weeks and engage in devotional service. Well, after a week, he was, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. And he started packing his bags. The devotees were pleading with, no, please stay, Prabhu. What is it we can do? He said, there's nothing you can do. I'm leaving. And so the temple president approached him, and he was pleading also, and he was trying to figure out, how can I encourage this devotee to stay? And then he saw Sarvabhauma, and he said, I have an idea. He said, you see that devotee over there? He pointed to Sarvabhauma, 5'4", 120. And the devotee said, yes, I see him. He said, I tell you what, if you wrestle with him and you defeat him, you can leave freely. And if he defeats you, you stay for the 3 weeks as you agreed. And the devotee looked at Sarvabhauma and said, I can take him, no problem. Keep my bags packed. And so they went outside and they started wrestling in the courtyard, and all the devotees were gathered around, and they're wrestling and everything. And Sarvabhauma tells a story that, fortunately, this devotee didn't know that I was a wrestler previously. And fortunately, by Krishna's grace, I was victorious. And so in this particular way, he gave pleasure to the devotees. He gave pleasure to Krishna by encouraging this devotee to actually stay, and defeating him in this wrestling match, humbling him also. Yeah. So let's go to the next verse.
Okay, so yeah, Bhakti Maharaj was a wrestler when he was in Hawkins prep school before he went to Princeton. He was on the team, the wrestling team. He was very much a person that loved sports, and he was, yeah, he loved wrestling. Actually, he used to tell us stories about how fun wrestling was. So we know that Krishna was enjoying this wrestling match with Charuna and Mushtika, and they had no idea who they were engaging with. So like Ekavira Prabhu told that story, that military person had no idea who he was going to engage in battle with and fight with. And so this last verse, text 35, therefore let's do what the king wants. Everyone will be pleased with us. Okay, so they're supporting their king, for the king embodies all living beings. And yes, in our scriptures, it's explained in the fourth canto that the king will consider all embodied living entities as dear as his own self. And he will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. He will ultimately associate with liberated persons, and he will be a chastising hand to all impious persons. That's a king. That's a real king. Now, Kamsa was not that kind of a king. Yet these Charuna and Mishtika was so dedicated to Kamsa, almost in a way that it's kind of interesting. These things just kind of keep going on around and around and around in the world, where we can have people believing in someone, even when they're doing all kinds of atrocious activities. Kamsa was he was just amazingly destructive. And yet he had personalities like these two wrestlers that were totally dedicated to him and spoke about him as if though he was a pious ruler, like a pious king. We know that the supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to law-abiding persons and to chastise those who stray. This is also in the fourth the fourth canto of Bhagavatam. This, I believe that's the story of King Prithu. And so it's just amazing to hear how they were totally oblivious of these qualities, these demoniac qualities. And that's, Prabhupada explains that to us, explains in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains to Arjuna that people with demoniac qualities, they don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. They have no clue. So similarly, Charuna and Mishtika had no idea that, I mean, they knew that they had some idea that Krishna was different because they praised him, that he actually was, revered by courageous men. So they had a little idea that they were so sold out to Kamsa that they could not recognize Krishna and Balaram for who they really were. And their demoniac qualities was just, they were overcome by their own demoniac qualities because they were following a leader that was demoniac. And so Prabhupada also explains that Krishna, when he comes, we know that he comes to annihilate the miscreants. So Krishna came to annihilate these impious kings like Kamsa, these kings that created so much havoc, so much destructions. So we understand that duplicity in communication can create havoc in communities. So in that community, we hear that the ladies, they were astounded, that these big wrestlers were going to fight with little Krishna and Balaram. They were actually disturbed about that. And so also in communities, we can have disturbance when there's duplicitous activities, when there are activities that are just, the intention is not to serve Krishna, it's not to cooperate amongst each other, it's not to be loving and kind to each other. It creates a destructive society ultimately. So in understanding that, is there something you want to say about the second? Because I think we don't have time. Okay, I just want to share one pastime of Bhaktitirtha Maharaj because of Srila Prabhupada today, his disappearance. And I believe this pastime, although I know most of you have heard this pastime many times, I wanted to share it because Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj helps us to understand the foundation of, let us set the intention of corporation. Yes, yes. And Jeffrey, when we don't cooperate, when we don't learn that tool, I want to say, of corporation, then mostly it's because we're still connected with our bodies in some way. To the degree we're not connected with our bodies, thinking we're a body, thinking we're a mind, thinking we're an intelligence, to that degree, we will become more cooperative because we realize we're all spirit souls trying to serve Krishna. We're just servants of the Lord. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj says, in New York in 1971, New York, 1971, that's where he became a devotee. There was a devotee named Bhaktagan who was trying to start a program in Harlem and was gathering some Black bodies to help him. I visited the temple on weekends and had connected with Bhaktagan. When Prabhupada came, he met with those of us who worked in this Harlem project. We came in for darshan, and I was lucky to sit close to Srila Prabhupada. Like everyone else, I felt he was looking at me piercingly and intimately. At that time, I asked a question due to my experiences in the temple in New York. I had graduated from the University of Princeton and was working as an assistant to the public defender in New Jersey. But when I went to the temple, not many devotees preached to me. Maybe they saw that I was puffed up. But anyway, I said, Srila Prabhupada, there are prejudices in this movement. Prabhupada looked at me and said, someone is thinking you're the body. And if you're disturbed that they are thinking that you're the body, then you are also nonsense. That was the spirit. Prabhupada told me in so many words. Bodily consciousness is there in so many ways. But if you get distracted because of that, then that is your nonsense. So this is just a short pastime of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj that he shares to remind us that those demoniac qualities of Chunika and Mushtika can be there as long as we stay attached to our bodies and think that we're this body. So our humble prayer to Srila Prabhupada on this day is, Srila Prabhupada, please, please accept us, and please, please help us to remember that we are your servants, servants of Shri Radha Damodar, and servants of the devotees. Please help us to become free from this bodily conception of life. Thank you very much, dear devotees.
Thank you, Prabhus. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Damodar Priya. Hare Krishna.
Dear Ekavira and Vraja Lila Prabhus, so lovely to see both of you. I'm so grateful to Krishna that I felt well enough to start attending class again in the mornings. I really appreciate you sharing that pastime, because I've had that pastime shared with me in reference to feeling, I guess, I don't know if the right word is discriminated, or feeling not seen as in a women's body as well. That pastime has been used to kind of like explain how I should be reacting. And at times it hasn't felt helpful. You know, like when you just shared it, I felt the warmth of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. I felt how he felt seen by Prabhupada. But a lot of times it feels like this pastime is shared in a way that isn't kind of in that mood, that it's more of like, well, just be quiet, you know, accept that that's, you know, the women's role in our society, or this is what needs to happen. And I'm just wondering how to, should I accept that, or how to just process that all when it's kind of used in that way? I don't know if I'm making myself understood. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ekavira has another class. Damodar Priya, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj taught me something very early in my Krishna conscious life. He taught me these three words that stays with me always. Three words. He said, in this Krishna consciousness movement, and in your desire to stay aspiring to be a devotee, you must learn to be humble but brave. Humble but brave. So this pastime of our spiritual master was in that mood. He was very brave to approach Srila Prabhupada and ask questions. That's one of the points that we were making earlier, to be able to ask the spiritual master questions that are at the core of our hearts, that are really affecting us, that we're really concerned about, because he was really sincere. He wanted to learn, he wanted to understand, he wanted to grow. So he was able to approach Srila Prabhupada in that mood. And of course, Prabhupada, he didn't tell him this was not the case. It's not, yeah. So we don't want to think that women may sometimes have a secondary role in some situations. Yeah. So, okay. All right. But I have a choice if even if I think I'm a woman, first of all, that's kind of me being on a Bollywood platform. And then secondly, even if I think I'm a woman, I have a choice to do things differently. I have a choice to not be distracted by somebody else's distraction. So if somebody is sharing this pastime, to say, don't be self-expressed, don't express yourself in whatever body anyone may be in, it's not aligned with Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness says, ask questions, right? Brahmatirtha Prabhu wrote a book, right, about that. Perfect questions, perfect answers. Ask questions. And so, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Damodar Priya. There's so many different places that we can find, even the scriptures. I was just looking the other day, I was given a class on this Mataji Sunita. Sunita was the wife of who's that? Sunita. I can't remember now. It's a few days I gave that class. But anyway, Sunita was described as a bad person, bad, because she's the daughter of Yamaraj, right? And so, I couldn't understand, like, why is she bad just because she's the daughter of Yamaraj? I seriously couldn't understand. And I asked other people that are much more sastric than me, can you please explain this to me? Why is she bad? Why is she called bad? Why is that? And so I realized later, nobody could really explain it to me. So far, I think I need to keep exploring, but somehow Krishna in my heart, the Lord in my heart, super soul, helped me to kind of understand that word bad for me has a connotation of a certain meaning, whereas in the way that it was written may not have that connotation at all. It may mean something totally different because it's a different time and it's a different way of how people thought, and and the language and how it was translated from what Prabhupada said. And there's so many things to take into consideration. So I realized, Raja Lila, that's, it's not important. It's not important. This Mataji, Sunita, she was I think she was Vena's mother. King Vena. Yeah. So she's in the Bhagavatam. And there's something I'm to learn from her in the Bhagavatam. So then I took that opportunity to look at it differently. So we always have a choice to see things differently, to look at it differently, no matter what body we're in. That's kind of what I've learned from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I don't know. Adipurusha Prabhu is here. I'm sure he has much more to say on this. He's such a wise senior Vaishnava. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
And we just pray to Srila Prabhupada to say what he would say. Not that I have a lot to say, but what I've noticed, we spoke about enthusiasm and about asking questions. Many years in attending church, there was always a sermon, but never did they say any questions. So when Prabhupada was speaking, I was noticing he would say any question. I go, oh my goodness. And then, of course, he's preaching to people of all kinds of levels of sincerity, and many people would be challenging and throwing all kinds of curveballs and ridiculous questions. But what impressed me was, with Bhakti Tirtha Swami and with Srila Prabhupada, was that he was so joyful and loving and confident and able to just respond even to the most ridiculous questions in a very firm, clear, joyful way, and it's Krishna's love flowing through him to give us Krishna consciousness. So there's one question: do you love me? And yes, I love you, Krishna loves you, and that's given in the way we speak. Well, glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, thank you very much, Ru. I just want to quickly share, Kartik. Interesting how the same message from different people can sound different. People may forget what we say, but they always remember how we made them feel. Yes, famous quote. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Damodar Priya. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki jai.
Haribol! Wow. Yeah.
Wonderful class, Vraja Lila. Who's that quote from? They'll never forget how you make them feel. Who said that? Buddha?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I've heard it in nonviolent communication for sure.
Ahimsa communication. Right.
Govindam. Enum Gandharvam Arvindam Laitaksham Varavatam Samsitam Purasundarangam Andarpakot Kamaniya Visheshasoham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananiyasya Sakalin Piyavritimanti Pasyanti Pan Kayanti Iram Jagati Anadati Maya Sadhu Pala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Amaham Jami Adipurusham Jami. Adi Purusham.
Hare Krishna. How did Radha Muladhara make you feel, dear devotees?
Blessed.
Right. Thank you so much. Do we have time for one more question? That's in regards to how you make people feel. Does that mean that we should let them take advantage of us and become like a people pleaser? Or is there a room for backbone and heaven and saying something that may not sound and palatable or standing your ground? Is there room for that? How does that work?
Are you speaking to me, Prabhu?
Yes.
Are you asking anyone? Has Bhima is saying something?
Asking you, maybe Ekavira Prabhu, anyone on the call. Because, I have to deal with Bhima Prabhu and I have to have the backbone. If I always concerned about pleasing him, I'll be, I don't know where I'll be. If I'm concerned how he feels. It's a joke, Bhima Prabhu. I love you. I love you.
You're positive you know how I feel. There's no question how I feel.
Okay.
Austerity of speech.
Austerity of speech. I like it. I already like it. Austerity of speech. There's so much can be unpacked. Adi Purusha Prabhu.
Just an elaboration on my comment. Dealing with a child, the parent may sometimes tell your speakerphone is on, so it's echoing. Your speakerphone is on, Ananda Vihari. When dealing with a child, sometimes the father will chastise, sometimes he'll encourage, but both are done out of love. And children are like love magnets. I've seen them, they gravitate to the devotees that have a loving heart. Even a dog can tell whether you love them or you're afraid of them or you're going to threaten them. So when somebody asks a question, no matter how it seems, they really just want to know if you love them. We see that on Sankirtan collecting donations, that at one point somebody looks at you. It might be just a fraction of a section, but they want to know, do you really believe Prabhupada's real? Are you confident that what you're doing is not selfish, that you care about me? Even when Ronald Reagan, when he got shot, you know Ronald Reagan, the president?
Yeah.
So he got shot, and then he went to the hospital, and the doctors were there, and they were going to operate. He said, "Are you guys Republicans?" You just want to know, is this person my enemy? Is this person my well-wisher? Does this person care about me? Are they just trying to get something from me? Or they're going to hurt me? So that's the real question that they're asking. And they want to know if you believe in what you're doing and if you're sincerely there for their benefit and this is something truthful, or if it's some kind of disguised selfishness. I don't know how clear all that was.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very clear. I really appreciate the point how it all boils down to whether you care for the person you're dealing with or not. You may, if you don't care, you may say the nicest things, the sweetest things, but it doesn't go anywhere. But if you really care, then whatever you have to say will be taken nicely.
Look at Bhakti. Look at Prabhupada when he's speaking with people. There's a glow. There's a smile. There's a shining. There's a affectionate. Even if it's like a thunderbolt. Still, there's a underlying sweetness and Krishna's love flowing through them in such a powerful way, and Krishna, and that's what we see in these devotees giving class today. It's lots of love, love for their spiritual master, confidence in what's true, and only speaking for our benefit. Right? Well, glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you for benefiting us. Thank you for caring about us, Vraja Lila and Ekavira.
We feel
By the
so,
way,
we're the ones that are so, well, we're very, thank you also for sharing that with us. And we feel so cared for, so loved by you, Prabhu. When you invite us to come, when we are not able to, our hearts ache because we're like, oh, Ananda Bihari, we just want to please him. We just
No,
want to please him.
we know you're very
First, please,
busy.
Srila
We know you're very busy in Lord Chaitanya's movement. No problem. Always appreciate your association.
I'd like to share a quote. You know, I'm a big advocate on austerity of speech because I've seen over the years, and even now, how even in our communities, when we speak harshly, you know, many devotees have become traumatized in their life just from hearing someone speak harshly to them, because we don't always know when someone cares. If, you know, because this is a quote, the culprit mind is always suspicious. Therefore, our dealing should always be straightforward and approved by Vedic authorities. Vedic authorities tell us to speak palatable truths. Professor Maharaj writes that in one of his Japa reform books. Learn to speak palatable truths. If we treat people diplomatically or dupliciously, our spiritual advancement is obstructed. That's from one of Prabhupada's purports. From
Nice.
yeah. So it's important, you know, to be conscious, because people are fragile, especially people that are coming in our movement today. They're very fragile. And so it's very important for us to think what we say before we say it. 'Cause we don't know the impact it can have on a person that might be traumatized from something. So much to be traumatized by in life.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajali. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Austerity of speech, ki jai. Palatable truth, ki jai. Srila Prabhupada, ki jai. We're fast until noon today, dear devotees. Do it for Prabhupada. And we'll feel connected.
Yeah.
Practice austerity of speech like Lila and Ekavira. Always inspire other devotees.
that
And
was
see the good.
Maya Angelou.
Yeah. Thank you. The quote,
Yes.
right? People will
Yes.
forget what you said. People will forget what you did. Wow. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Nice. Maya Angelo ki jai.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
All right. Would anyone else would like to make a final remark? Just keep it brief. No. Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama then. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.